And I haven't talked about Robinson Auction Service near as much as I wanted to, but I have said why I think they're successful, or one of the reasons that they are, one of the reasons they got started out right, and one of the reasons that I said got lucky, but it wasn't all luck, because it was luck that their competition was like he was, but then it was their character that caused them to overtake that competition, because that competition left the door open by being my dad. He used to have a saying. There was a car dealer. My dad was a car dealer. There was a car dealer in our town, and he had about the same kind of reputation as this auctioneer did. I mean, everybody knew the kind of things that he did. Nobody trusted him to do the right thing. And everybody liked him, though. I mean, that's the same way with this auctioneer. About everybody liked him. And everybody do business with him. They're just careful, because they knew how he was. But he left the door open. And he left the door open for Roger. And this car dealer, my dad used to say about him, and you could say this about that auctioneer. My dad said, that guy's so crooked, they won't even be able to bury him when he dies. They'll have to screw him in the ground. My dad died before he did, so. And that man that my dad said they'll have to screw him in the ground. When my dad was in the funeral home, this man, I didn't see him because he come in early, I guess, even before the family got there. But when I looked at the book, the very first name on the book after my dad's viewing and the funeral and all, the very first name on the book was that car dealer. He come to pay his respects to my dad. And my dad wasn't backward about anything he said, so I imagine this man knew that my dad said they'd have to screw him in the ground. My dad probably told him that to his face. I never did hear him do it, but I'm pretty sure he probably did.
Right there, over the now 45. I mean, over the he might take a go. Over the now 50, over the now 50, over the now 50, now 55, over the now 55. I mean, over the.
I talked about a lot of auctioneers today. Some good ones, some bad ones. I've said nice things. I've said not so nice things about some of the things they do. And I talked about one that was one of the main auctioneers in Lawrence County when Roger first started, and some of the shenanigans that he came up with opened the door for Roger to get into business. But he wasn't the worst. The worst guy that I ever saw at shenanigans, and I think he's still an auctioneer, but I met him over in Illinois too. And I talked about this other guy being able to take a bid from a maple tree or a fire hydrant. This guy here, he could get bids from anywhere, and multiple bids. He could see them with his eyes closed. He started, well, he had a big old sprawling building. This guy would start bids. That's another bad habit that some auctioneers have, starting bids when they don't really have one. They should do that. It's easy to get a bid. If you just take the bid that somebody wants to start, that's all you need to do sometimes. I don't care if they should be starting a thing for $50. If somebody bids $1, you can get to $50 in just a few seconds. A few seconds, rather than yammering for 50, and then begging, and somebody out here bid 5, but you're still trying to get 25. Forget it. Take that bid. Take that $1, $5, $15, $25. That took about 4 seconds to get, take the bid. Whatever bid you get, and go. If it's not enough, go fast. Go. I'm getting a little wound up. Who was I talking about? That guy, he'd start bids, and he'd start them ridiculously. He'd say, I got $50 for something that wasn't worth $15. He'd say, I got 50, and he'd take off. And a lot of times, somebody bid 55. And a lot of times he might start something for 10 and take off, and he might get up to $160. And just like he was $10 and he got just going fast and got up to 160, and now he's trying to get 165, and it looks like the bidding stopped and slowed down. He says, that didn't work. He said, will anybody give $10 for this? He'd take off like that. And just unabashedly, unashamed, say, I was trying to hook all you guys, but it didn't work, so let's start it over again. Or sometimes he'd just sell something, put it in the back, and you'd see it again the next time he was over there. He'd try to sell it again. Or I know one time there was this little short gray-haired lady from Chicago, and she'd come down there. He knew her. He knew she didn't know what she's doing, and he knew she had a strong market for stuff. She paid too much for stuff. She liked primitives, and anything was a primitive. It could have been built last week, but it's built out of barnwood. It's primitive. And one day he started out on a deal like that. He started something for about $20 that wasn't worth $2, and he had it up to about, $100. And here she come running, what are you selling, what are you selling? He said, this. I said, where you been? I knew you'd like this. I got 100, give me 125, and she did. He didn't even have a bid. And the next week, I was over the next week, and he told the crowd, she wasn't there then. She bought that thing for $125 when he didn't have a bid on it at all. The next week, she wasn't there. He told the crowd the story that I just told you. He said he knew her name. He told the whole crowd her name. He said she come running up. He said, I didn't have a bid. I was getting ready to start over again. She come up and I got 125 from her, and she bought it. He did that stuff all the time. And I tell you how remarkable it is. He's still in business too. People put up with that from him. I don't know. I used to go over there. When my dad was alive, I'd go over there. Because sometimes you could buy something. But you had to watch it around him. Because big old boy. Wore bib overalls. Year round. In the wintertime, he had on bib overalls and a toboggan and a hooded sweatshirt. In the summertime, he had on bib overalls and a toboggan and no shirt. And I never seen the man that didn't have on bib overalls and a toboggan. Oh well, let's move on.
50, but go to the one now 50, but go to the one now 50, now 55, go to the one now 55. I'm just going to the one now 55, going to the one now 55, hit her again, going to the one now 55.
Tom, I've started to tell this story about him twice now and got sidetracked. I'm not even going to finish it. I'm just going to say that we're all right, Tom. You're not the only auctioneer that aggravates me in the way you aggravated me, and you weren't the first. You won't be the last, and I'm over it. Until you do it the next time, then I'm aggravated with you again, and I'll probably give you some kind of look and go off.
Folks, shares count as one, guys. There's the good ones. Remember? Here we go. Get right in there. How much? 20? Now 5.
When I'm buying something and the bidding slows down and I've got the bid and things slow down, I expect them to sell it to me. And when they hammer and hammer and hammer and yammer and go on about they're on a commission and don't try to hurry me up, because when they do that, aggravates me. And even when they don't do all that, when they just, there's a hesitation and they should have sold it and they didn't, and they finally get that other bid, that other $2.50 or whatever it is they're trying to get, I'm not going to reward them by bidding again, ever. Just not going to do it. I don't care if they're selling something for $20 that's worth $120. I'm done with it if I think they should have sold it to me. Because when I quit, a lot of times it's the same thing. They yammered, but then I say no, and bang, they just sell it. Maybe they knew I was the last bid they were going to get. I don't know. But when the bidding slows down to a point where it should be sold, whether I'm the bidder or anybody's the bidder, I think they ought to sell it and go on. And when they don't, aggravates me.
$45 been there now on the Vinny, Vinny, and the Vinny, 45 now, Vinny, and the Vinny. Who else wants in? 45, 50, 50, last.
But it's not for the faint-hearted. I mean, it's, you know, if you're an auction goer, you can't. And if you're an auctioneer, you got to be good at that. And you got to train your crowd, because if your crowd's not trained, they won't let you do it. They'll slow walk you. They'll slow you down. Some of them will. All of them won't. You get people there was a lady at the sale yesterday. She was sitting over at the left of me. I wasn't going to bid against her because she's a customer of mine. She buys lots of stuff from me. And there ain't no sense in me aggravating her over $10 or $15 difference in what she wants to pay and what I want to pay. So I just stay out of her way. It's part of going to an auction. If you're buying stuff to sell again, you can't take good customers and aggravate them over $5 or $15 or even $20. I knew she's going to pay. There's no sense in making her pay. Just stay out of the way and let her do it. But she's not a regular auction goer. She know what she's doing. She's just doing this because she wanted that, what he was selling. And so she, no effort to slow anybody down. And this guy over here that's a dealer, he's over bidding, and I know him too, and I've stayed out his way for years because when he was young, he'd just run over you. There wasn't no sense in trying to get in his way. Couldn't buy nothing that he wanted. He just bought it. And he just beat people down until they just stayed out of his way. He still does that a little bit, but not near as bad as he used to. And he's not my customer anymore. He used to have his own sale. Back in the day, he had a sale in February every year. Big sale. In fact, when he first started doing that, I think Roger may have had his first one. I don't know. Roger had several of them. I think that picture I showed you of Roger when he was a young man when we started this. If I didn't show it, I'll show it to you now. I think that was at one of his sales, this guy I'm talking about. This is Roger, and he was a young man there. He looks good, doesn't he? This is one of the early Orange County Country Store sales down at Chambersburg. That's Roger calling a sale. He called maybe the first, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of those before they got somebody else working those sales, but there's always a big sale every year, early in the year. Usually Roger's first sale. Not always, but it was in first Saturday in February. Roger did those sales, and this is him doing one of those. Roger used to do his sales. They got into quabble over something. I don't know why. I think I heard at the time, but it doesn't matter because they're both still friends. But he got somebody else to do his sales, not Roger. And they feuded over that for a while. Roger used to try to schedule a sale every year on the same day he had a sale. He don't do that anymore either. But Roger was an honest man. And that eventually made him number one. He got the number one status, and he never give it up. Well, he gave it up, but it transferred not out of his company, but out of his hands. Stephen is that man now. Stephen, his youngest son. He's the one today that
I'll be told about 15, 15, told about 15 to 15, now 17 hands, told about 17, told about 20, 17, told about 20, 20, 17, told about 20, on the Carter's about 20, not 20.
owns and operates the Robinson Auction Service. I don't know how the ownership of it really is. That's none of my business. It doesn't even matter. But it's obvious that Stephen and his wife, Megan, I think they're out on the limb for that new building they built, and they run the business. Roger's still around, but he doesn't do much but offer support and public relations with the folks, just things like that nowadays. And that's worth something. People like Roger, they like to talk to him. And, you know, he's a good ambassador for goodwill and for the company. But the Robinson Auction Service is, you know, mostly Stephen nowadays. Tom still works with him. I even see Roger's daughter sometimes. Some days she works some. And maybe they got some, I don't know who some of them people are. They might, some of them might be kids of them other kids, Roger's grandkids. I don't really know, but Robinson Auction Company. And they built this building. They'll tell you this. They built it. They should have built it a long time before they did. But they built a building. They built a nice building. They did it right. And they get big sales and they get big crowds. And they still do some things a little different than I do in some instances. But they do enough things right that they are number one. They're going to be number one for a long time. And nobody can mess that up for them. Nobody's going to take that away from them. That they'll have to give it away like this other guy I was talking about earlier did. That's the only way anybody else is going to get a foot in the door. If they start doing things that cause people to think twice about what they're doing, where they're going. I don't look for that to happen. I've not seen it happen yet, and I don't think it will ever. But, you know, like I said, sometimes it's... There was another auctioneer that had a situation similar to theirs, had his own building. He was number one in his area. In fact, he had, he probably had 1, 2, 3, at least 3 counties sold up. Monroe County for sure, Owen County for sure, maybe Greene County. I'd say he got any sale he wanted in Greene County. He was top dog for a lot of years. And he did things his way too. I mean, same kind of a thing. He and his wife in the business. His kids grew up and they got involved in the business. I don't think the oldest boy ever was an auctioneer, but he worked for this guy's son. But the girl and the youngest boy, they became auctioneers and worked in the business. And they did a lot of the things the same way that the Robinsons do. And then one thing that they were alike with Roger and his family was they were honest. I mean, they wouldn't do anything to take advantage of you for love or money. They were above board with everything they tried to do. Now, sometimes they did dumb things. I saw him over a license plate one time. I don't know where I'm going. I said I was going to talk about auctions, so I'm going to tell you the rest of this story, and then we're going to get back to the Robinsons again, I guess. He was selling choice. He was the world's worst at selling choice, and I tell you, I've made 3 videos about selling choice, and you know, if you watch those videos, I don't like it. That's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is a guy got choice, picked up what he wanted, and left with it, but there was a license plate laying there. And one of the other guys standing there said, "Did you want that license plate?" And he said, "No, I don't want that." He said, "You can have that." And he picked it up and he gave it to the guy. And the guy started to walk off with it. This auctioneer said, "Hey, wait, whoa. If he don't want that, that's mine. Put it back down." And when you think about what I just said, the guy that gave it away bought it. It was his to give away if he wanted to. He bought it. He wasn't going to take it, but it was still his. He gave it to this guy. This auctioneer said, "No, you can't do that. That's mine. Put it down." And the guy tried to explain to him what happened. He said, "No. If he's not taking stuff, it's mine. I'll sell it again, or sell it next week." The problem with what he just did was, this is a license plate. It's not even an old license plate. It's worth maybe $2, $3. He couldn't even get a bid. I mean, he sold the whole box of stuff for $2 or $3, and the guy left the license plate. But over that, the kindest word I can use is aggravated. He aggravated a guy, and not only did he aggravate a guy, he aggravated a guy that was there every week at his sales. Not only was he there every week at his sales, he was a dealer, and he bought stuff to resell, and he bought lots of things every week at his sales. And he alienated that guy, aggravated him, made him mad, to the point where he said, "I'll not be back." And guess what? I thought, he'll be back, because this is his main source for what. I knew the guy. I knew where he had 4 booths, 2 of them in the Bloomington Antique Mall, and one of them at another little place and over by Spencer, and then another one that I think was in Ellettsville. But he had, the ones I knew, he had at least 4 that I knew of, and I bought and sold stuff from him, and he bought and sold stuff from me. So I knew him well, and the guy was a good customer to have. Over a license plate that he couldn't even get a bid on, that guy said, "I'll never be back. I'm done. I'm through with this." I didn't think he meant it. I thought he'd be back, and I thought he'd get over and be back next week. But he didn't come back. I never saw him there again at this guy's sale. This guy, I don't know, within a year or 2, had a heart attack and died. But that guy that he did that to over that license plate, he never came back again, ever. So that wasn't a dishonest thing that an auctioneer did. It was a dumb thing. That's a dumb thing to do. Why aggravate somebody like that over something? But it's a good old boy. He didn't even know that he'd done something that aggravated him. He didn't even, and if you tried to explain it to him, he wouldn't have understood it. He just, as far as he was concerned, that license plate might bring $2 next time, and it was getting away from him. Being honest, being trustworthy. That's so important in anything that you do. And that's the label that I'm going to hang on the Robinson Auction Service. You can trust them people. They try to do right. That's where I'm going to let it go today. I know where this thing, I just rambled on. I don't know if this can be a video or not. I may have to edit it so much that I don't know what's going to happen. I'm a hard times guy. Have a good day.